So good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you, all of you, to this new series on egg biotech. This is in works for some time. I think it's a very important topic that we have been thinking of bringing to forefront. There's lots happening in the market. I also see lots of tailwinds for egg biotech products, especially driven by the consumer demand for safe food, for traceable food, for nutritious food, for organic food. So I think there's a lot happening on the demand side, and I'm sure that will be one of the key drivers for a lot of egg bio products that we see in the market. And I think the second big driver is the innovation that we see in this space. Some of it is driven by corporates, I must say, but I must also confess that a lot of it is driven by new age entrepreneurs. And that's why we thought let's bring all those entrepreneurs together. Of course, it's a relatively large universe, but we have been able to get some of the best for this first episode. And what I can ensure that this is just the start, and we would like to build upon this dialogue, and probably we'll do a few more episodes, bringing in more startups, more corporates, and hopefully some policymakers into the conversation. And we are very fortunate to partner with the Dayal Group. As you all know, Dayal Group is one of the leading conglomerate in the agri-input space with a lot of focus on ag biotech. They're also one of our ThinkAg corporate members. So we're very fortunate to have the Dayal Group as partner for this series. And we have Amrita, who's joining us today from the Dayal Group. She works there as director. And I'll hand it over to Amrita to anchor the discussions. Over to you, Amrita.
Thank you, sir. I'm really delighted to be present here with all these dynamic startups. And like sir mentioned, we at Dayal very strongly believe that biotechnology in agri is going to be the next frontier of innovation that's going to drive growth in this industry. And we've been part of this space for the last 20 years. We've marketed many products to farmers across the country and have seen a fair amount of success in that. But it is in the last few years that the interest has really quadrupled in this industry, and we're very thrilled that so many new players have come in. So many older players that were only focusing on agrochemicals are now venturing into bio. The government's focus has increased. Like sir mentioned, consumer demand is definitely the push here, where we want healthier, we want safer food. So I think this is a great time for the ag bio space. And I want to thank ThinkAg for giving Dayal also this opportunity to co-host this series. And the first of this is the Startup Showcase. So we can, Abhijit, do you want to wait for more attendees, or should we begin the showcase?
We can start off. I mean, people will join us for that.
All right. So today we have with us 5 promising startups, and they are all at various stages of development. And you also have a very diverse set of product portfolios that have been developed by these startups. Each of these startups is going to have 10 minutes to present their story, the solution that they've developed, post which we will have some questions. And I invite the audience to also share their questions with us on the chat or the Q&A panel, and we'll be happy to share those with the startups. So let me begin with Dr. Renuka Diwan, founder and CEO of BioPrime Agri Solutions. Dr. Renuka has worked extensively on bioactives for more than 13 years. And with her team at BioPrime, she has developed effective and affordable agri-biologicals that help farmers prevent crop loss and fight unfriendly climatic conditions, diseases, and pests. Dr. Renuka, we invite you to please share your presentation with us now.
Thank you, everybody. Especially thank you, ThinkAg and the Dayal Group for hosting a session on ag biotech. It's something that is absolutely required in today's time. So very happy to be on the panel with a lot of other startups who are doing great works, and to meet old friends also. So good platform to reconnect with people. So I'll share my screen. Just let me know if you are able to see this properly. Yeah, you are able to see me and hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. So BioPrime is a ag biotechnology startup founded by 3 researchers with the aim of bringing back pride and profit to the farmers. So we focus on ensuring that farmers have a harvest that is bankable, that is assurable, instead of each harvest him having to wonder whether it's a gamble and he's constantly losing crops to climate change impact. In the first stage of our technology, we have focused on ensuring mitigation against climate change and making crops resilient to changing and fluctuating climatic conditions. So with climatic fluctuations, there are a couple of other problems that crop up, which means that the plants are basically not functioning to their maximum efficiency. The very processes that are required for photosynthesis, flowering, fruiting, taking up of nutrients sometimes function as low as 40%. And that means that the farmer does not see the plants growing as per his expectation, and he ends up adding more fertilizers, taking more sprays. That adds to his cost of production. And despite doing this, he is not able to see the output that he desires. So the yield gap, that is the maximum possible yield of a plant versus what he realizes in his field, keeps on increasing day by day. And these are the problems that we aim to address. So we develop biologicals that are based on small biomolecules that trigger different responses in plants. And that's how the name BioPrime also comes in. So by using these biomolecules, we are optimizing the plant processes that we just spoke about, and they're able to mitigate the other problems, which means that the productivity increases, there's assured production, there's increase in quality of the produce, so he gets a better market price or they meet the export criteria. The MRL levels are under control, so a lot of other markets open up for the farmers, increasing profitability for the farmer. And doing this, we focus on sustainability, we focus on organic, and we focus on residue-free farming. The base of our technology is our screening platform, which is called Sniper. So this is a bunch of rapid screening protocols that are put together to help us screen in an affordable yet efficient way hundreds and thousands of biomolecules, which are derived for either plants or microbes or algae or bacteria. So this is a proprietary patented process, and it is one of the few platform technologies that focus on developing biologicals for climate resilience. This technology has been supported by BIRAC, Department of Biotechnology, Niti Aayog, PUSA IRI, REACH, Government of Telangana, to name a few. So what does this biological, what do these biologicals actually translate to in field? So the biologicals are able to modulate the different processes in the plants, and they are able to reduce the crop losses in unfavorable conditions and increase profitability of the farmers by increasing yield in terms of quality and quantity by 20 to 25%, and reducing the need of fertilizer by 20 to 25%. This is the current portfolio that we have launched. So these are the first generation of biologicals that we have launched. We've reached almost 50,000 farmers now. And one of the prime reasons we see a lot of adoption is, one is all the products are non-hormone based products, and two, that they are very easy to use. They're compatible with all the current chemicals and agriculture practices that the farmers have, and so they can be adopted on as is where is basis. Just to give a breakup of what are the kind of portfolio that we have. So we have different products that are to be used at different stages of the plants. they are crop agnostic, but they are stage specific. So what we do is we give farmers a kind of a understanding on how the products are to be used at what stages of the plants. And largely we see adoption, very high adoption in vegetable and fruit farmers. Giving a case study of what this translates to in field. So this is a farmer and who is based in Nashik, and the story is a story during the pandemic. So in the first year of the pandemic, he was not able to harvest his grapes. And when the grapes are ready and not harvested and are stored on the plant for a longer time, they take up nutrition, which means that in the next season, it affects productivity. So he was already expecting low productivity, and he was expecting that a lesser percentage of his grapes would meet the export criteria. And that's why he was drawn to use our products. He used the products for growth enhancement as well as for yield enhancement. And he was able to get 14% more yield, but he was able to increase his export-oriented production from 40% to 60%. So in the second year of lockdown, he was able to earn almost 1.25 lakhs rupees extra. That is after spending on Bioprime's product. And the MRL level that was required met the criteria, so he was able to export his produce also. This is another story of a local farmer here very close to Pune. We have large flower farmers. These farmers usually have to send their flowers to either Pune or Mumbai market, where they fetch around 25 rupees to 20 rupees a kg of price for the flowers. We were able to increase his flower production, and the farmer also noticed that the shelf life could be extended by 3-4 days. And so what he did was he targeted further markets, and he got almost 70-75 rupees market price at Hyderabad. So cutting down the transport, he got market of almost 50 kg, which led to increase, literally doubling of his income. These are a couple of stories that our farmers from all over the country have shared. A large part of our produce gets sold on vegetables and fruits, like I mentioned, but we also have a large acreage under rice and wheat, where the impact for the farmers is much lower. And even in these cases, we are able to show 18 to 20% increase in yield. So what we are seeking currently is, we are at our early stages of commercialization. So we are seeking a go-to-market partners. We already have 4 go-to-market partners, and we look to establish more go-to-market partners where we are able to develop these formulations or customize these formulations according to these their requirements. And the kind of partnership that we choose or are looking for is a channel partner, where we are open to do co-branding approaches also. And we're looking for expansion into markets that is India and beyond. Besides this, I'm very happy to say that we are one of the few first startups who've been able to develop a co-development partnerships. So a joint R&D is going on multiple products. It's a multi-product, multi-year partnership. And it's one of the first in the country where a MNC has tied up with a startup to co-develop the products. These products will be then taken to the market through the MNCs. Besides the biomolecules, we're working on developing an extensive microbe collection, which will be one of the largest in the country of plant-associated microbes. So we look for partnerships in developing these microbes into products. So these are the current 3 aspects that we would like to focus, and we would love to partner with people who are listening to this. Please, you're free to get in touch with us. Having said, the amount of support that we have got from the government and the ecosystem has been phenomenal, and that has enabled us to come this far. However, there is certain issues that we hope if more support is given, then we'll be able to increase our footprint. So like I said, we're looking to expand into geographies outside India, specifically Asia and Africa. And within the country, we're looking to expand our footprint into cotton, soybean, sugarcane, and potato. Once we talk about biotechnology and we talk about agri inputs and biologicals, I think the issue of regulatory eventually crops up, where we hope to see more clarity in definitions, more clarity in terms of requirements for the registration of product, and the process being clearly laid out. And in this aspect, if there are any license or if that we can be done for the products to be taken into the market, that would be very beneficial. So these are the two key issues on which we are looking, looking for support from the community. Lastly, what makes it possible is the amazing team that we have. So we're 3 co-founders and we've been friends for 15 years. We did our PhD together. We have with us Dr. Sucheta Joshi, who worked as a scientist in biodiscovery, which got acquired by Monsanto. And we have Dr. Rahul Zog, who heads our R&Ds. He has done his postdoc from Japan. We have Ram Mudholkar, who is ex-president DuPont South Asia, as our advisor. These are some of the awards that we have won. And lastly, I would like to end by saying that we want to ensure that agriculture is profitable, not just for the farmers today, but also for the coming generation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renuka. So Renuka and I have known each other for a while, and it was every time I see what Bioprime is doing, my head gets blown because it's really cutting edge for biotech. You know, we've moved beyond the regular biofertilizers, biopesticides, and are truly seeing some very, very innovative things happening. So thank you for sharing your journey with us and your solutions with us. We do have a question. We have 2 questions, in fact. We have Mr. Ashok Kulkarni, who's asking if your products can be used in forest crops.
Yes, they are basically crop agnostic. So when we develop the products, we focus on basic processes of plants. So we look for biomolecules that modulate some of the very basic processes of plants. So they basically can be used in all type of crops. Having said that, we have never worked in forest crops. What we need to understand is the issue and understand the life cycle of the crop so that we are able to pinpoint what are the most influential stages and devise an application program accordingly, which I am very happy to do in consultation with Ashok ji. So, yeah.
Great. We have another question. Okay, Ashok Kulkarni ji is saying he'll get in touch with you. So that's great. We have Mr. Badram who's asking if these products are live organisms or if they're derivatives of live organisms, and what would be the shelf life of these products?
So they, the first generation of products is based completely on biomolecules. So there is nothing that is living in the product, and what it has is primary and secondary metabolites. So it's a consortium of biomolecules. And the shelf life is 3 years as of now. We are testing and validating as we go whether the shelf life can be extended. And what's the advantage of having biomolecules over live organisms is they are compatible with current agrochemicals that the farmer uses. So farmer usually will make a spray mix with insecticides, pesticides. He'll want to add something into it. And this is usually where he adds the microbes, and it's difficult for the microbes to show effect. So because these are biomolecules, they can be incorporated into these mix. And these biomolecules are surprisingly very stable in structure, so they don't get derivatized. We've done a study on compatibility as well.
Great. We have one more question for Bioprime is, can you give us specific scenarios for a specific crop where you've compared the cost for the farmers that have used chemical inputs versus Bioprime's inputs?
Yeah, absolutely. What we have done is we've done in grapes, we've done in onions, tomatoes. Currently, we will be starting in potatoes. What we do is each year we choose 5-6 crops where we put up a ROI study. So we have a randomized block design, kind of an experiment where we have farmer practices, we have control where there's a positive control, negative control, plus our products. Just an addition to the question is that these products are no way fertilizers. So these are not biostimulants, by their definitions are not fertilizers. So they act in mechanisms which are independent than nutrition. So that's one thing to remember. We can optimize or we can increase the efficiency of these fertilizers, but having said that, these are no way a replacement for fertilizers.
Yep, we've also we're seeing an increased focus on the whole INM approach again, where products like Bioprime are really supporting the regular chemical fertilizers and the uptake of those by the crops. Renuka, I had a question for you. We've spoken about this before also, that FCO has recently come out with the regulations for biostimulants, and they've come out with a bunch of clarifications on that. So as a startup, what has been your experience in this? And if there is a policy suggestion that you'd like to make for us, which we am sure will share with the policymakers in the coming sessions, but
yeah,
something you'd like to say to that?
Sure. I'm very happy that India happens to be one of the first few countries to issue a guideline on biostimulants. So I'm very, very happy about the approach and initiative that the government is taking. But having said this, there's still a lot of ambiguity on what is to be done, how it is to be done, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. So if the government issues clarifications on this, because currently it is open to interpretation and each state is interpreting it differently. And our issue as a startup definitely has been that we work in multiple states. So coordinating with each of this becomes a nightmare. Also, in terms of, I think we're policy is pretty clear on bioefficacy. It's pretty clear on toxicity and shelf life and stability and all that. Stability and shelf life. What they have not been very clear is on the toxicity. So they had issued 9 toxicity tests that were required, but then certain waivers were expected and are awaited. So we are unsure whether to, comply with all 9 toxicity tests or not, and the time for registration is running out. So might not be an issue for big MNCs, but for small startups like us, we essentially dilute equity to raise funds to, do regulatory. So that's a lot of money that gets stuck there. So so some clarity on that would be very, very welcome.
Thank you, Renuka.
Thank you, Amrita.
Hemendra sir, if there are any questions, or should we move to the next startup?
Yeah, no, we can move to the next startup, but I think what Renuka said is important. I don't see startups diluting money to meet regulatory compliances and clarity. I think that's not the right use of money. So we'll definitely raise it up, Renuka, in a conversation with policymakers for sure. Hopefully we'll invite some of them in the follow-on discussions, and we will sensitize them how difficult it is for someone like you to get a tick mark on all the possible tests and compliances that exist as part of the regulation. So thanks for bringing this out. I'm sure this applies to other startups as well.
Thank you, sir. We now invite Prabhav Ji, Director at Easy Krishi. Prabhav has been in the agricultural industry since 2014, and with Easy Krishi, they've been working with farmers to reduce the need for chemicals and irrigation, support optimal growth of plants, and reduce the impact of human activity on ecology. I now invite Prabhav to please share his presentation with us.
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity. There might be some background noise. Please excuse me for that. I mean, that is the only reason. I'll probably start, I'll try and share a video. I do not know what would be the clarity, but then you'll get to see some of the work which you're doing. Shall I share the video right away? Would that be fine? Okay.
Yes.
I hope you are able to see the video, screen now.
Well, there's no audio, so if you can just give a
Sure.
background on what this gentleman is talking, be useful.
So, briefly, sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this was the recent trial we got it done in Ghana, Upper West. One of the distributors there who was appointed by the government used one of our nano formulations. Though they call it a chemical, it is not. It is phytomolecular waste. And the yields are substantially higher than what they have been getting with regular chemical yield. So our bet has been the combination of biological, organic, that is botanical, and nano can completely replace chemical fertilizers and other nutrients is what we are basing our hypothesis. And even the outcome which we are saying is substantiated, whatever we are claiming. So one of the key things which I wanted to tell was, I guess there is a radical shift, which I'm seeing at least in the countries where we are working, towards less chemical methods. Now, as in there are few friends already on the panel.
Your voice is not the clearest. Would it be possible, perhaps headphones or closer to? I can't hear you very well.
Okay, probably the signal is a bit weak. I'll sum it up in next 1 minute. Basically, the hypothesis is the world of fertilizer is radically shifting towards nano or bio, and the reasons are economic for the farmer, but in the background, startups like us, companies like us, are looking into the ecological aspect. That means, can we reduce the amount of leaching which urea does, which is 78% currently? Can we reduce it to 2%? That is the question which we are facing. So we do not tell the farmers that, oh, this is ecologically great and stuff. We just talk economics, better yield, while we are doing something in the back end for ecology. So that is something which I wanted to tell. And I would want to stop at that.
So, Prabhav, you mentioned that you're working on changing the way farmers are farming with the background objective that it is good for the environment and good for the ecology.
Right. So for farmer, it is just economics which matters. Yield, ease of use. Can we reduce the labor cost? Can we reduce the cost of cultivation? But in the background, I guess it's more or less our responsibility to make sure that it is economically safe, ecologically safe. We cannot keep giving, let's say, telling stories to the farmer that, oh, you have to do that, you have to do this. Somewhere.
Right. So, Prabhav, can you maybe talk about one or two of the products that have enabled you to achieve this objective?
We have launched a product called Multimin, which is having all macro and micro in one shot. Our hypothesis was, have we ever seen a WhatsApp training institute ever in the country or probably across the world where people go there to get trained in WhatsApp? But no, right? But every other, let's say, so-called illiterate farmers and women folk from rural areas, they're all on WhatsApp. My question to a lot of professors and universities with whom we work in Karnataka was, why don't we have such a easy to use product for agriculture as well, where the farmer need not come and get trained, where it is started to shot. We give 1 liter per acre per crop. No questions asked. Which crop, which season, which variety, which geography. And we are seeing results both here in India as well as Africa, couple of countries, East and West. Now we are also sending it to Canada for trials. But our hypothesis is there has to be a product which doesn't require training anymore. Either over application or under application should not really hit the farmer. So this is one product which I can talk about today.
Okay, thank you, Prabhav. We have a question from Mr. Kulkarni that how much percentage of fertilizer application can be reduced by using the product that you just mentioned?
Well, today, the African, as in, forget the Indian, what do you call the trials, where we have some control and we have same language and stuff. Africa, I have not even stepped in to that continent even once. But without any training, or this is how strict guidelines, farmers are getting more without even application of 1 granule of regular urea or DAP there, just using our product. And that is the video which I showed.
Great. Hemendra sir, are there any questions from your end for Prabhav?
Prabhu, what is your go-to market? Is it partnering with the corporates who have a good rural distribution? Is that the way, or you want to build your own distribution?
Sir, it would be as in, impractical for me to go out and then do everything myself. So let's say with your kind introduction, we have sent the samples to Amrita madam. So as in when they do the trials, you would rather tie up with them, use their network, be some kind of OEM, especially in one of the African countries. There's a large MNC with 40 country distribution. We literally behave like OEM to them. There's no point in redoing the entire thing which is already done and dusted. But in few strategic countries, let's say Canada, there we are trying to say, can we at least push our brand, if not our distribution channel, some kind of co-branding. So we are attempting early days, but these are early days. We might as well white label. We do not know.
Prabhu, my next question is, what is the potential for Indian ag bio products to go to other parts of the world, especially since you are in Africa and planning to go to Canada? Do you think there's acceptability of Indian products in overseas market?
I think we are questioned a lot more. I do not know, because of the skin color, the reputation which we carry. One place where Indians are not questioned is IT. We have a long way to go in terms of at least the customer acceptance. To tell you very frankly, we are going through Singapore. We will have our own Singapore outfit, and the IPs will be played as in place there, and then we'll trade it from there. But in terms of product quality, I guess we are a bit ahead of Canadians as well. I was a bit pleasantly surprised to hear that they're not getting the yields which we are able to showcase with their products. So quality is there, but positioning, we are a bit behind. Let me put it that way.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Prabha. I'm sure we'd love to hear more from you, perhaps at another time. And the attendees today can reach out to you. So maybe you can just drop your email address or your contact number in the chat, and whoever would like to get in touch with can do that then afterwards. Thank you, Prabha. We now move on to FIBSOL. We have with us Dr. Kavita Sairam, another woman biotech innovator, leading the team at FIBSOL Life Technologies. FIBSOL has developed high-end technology-backed agri-inputs that enable farmers to do eco-friendly, sustainable farming. Dr. Kavita, please share more about the company and your achievements with us.
Thank you for the opportunity, first of all. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I would like to thank Tinkaji, the Foundation, and Mr. Hemandra, and also Mr. Abhijit for constantly supporting us, and also helping us to get some network and connection and other whatever activities going on currently at FIBSOL. Thank you for all the opportunities bestowed on us. Let me just start sharing my screen. So FIBSOL Life Technologies, as the name implies, it means fiber solutions. So this was IIT Madras spin-off way back in 2014. And our idea was to redefine global agri inputs through technology. So that is what the vision we started with. And so what is that we wanted to do? So today, basic plant requirements or the nutrients are provided by two forms. One is the chemical input, and the other is the organic input. Now, when you say chemical input, you have urea, you have DAP, you have phosphorus, potassium. So basically, these are needed for the plant growth. So plant gets a carbon or the energy food. Like if you see, we need three things, right? You need carbohydrates, you need protein, you need fats. This is a basic requirement for all living organisms. Today, plants get their carbon source from the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and they get it from the sunlight and chlorophyll. And now the only problem, or where they are dependent on humans, is the nitrogen part of it, because they don't have the capacity to convert the nitrogen in the atmosphere into ammonia. So basically, this is needed for their protein formation. That is the amino acid, backbone amino acid, and protein and growth. So that is where the entire requirement of the plants are following, and they're dependent on us, on humans. How do we provide them? So what has happened earlier? So when we were not technically so savvy, so before the green revolution started, how were plants doing this? How was plant able to get its requirement of these proteins, and how were the farming community managing it? So there was something basically in the soil called as microbes. So microbes, soil microbes, like if you see, the microbes have the capacity to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. They can solubilize phosphorus, they can mobilize potassium. So basically they were doing that. And what the farming community was trying to do was they were trying to replenish or grow these bacteria naturally by providing them compost. So that was a learned science they had, and that is what the community was doing. And in due course, what happened with population increase, we were not able to manage it. That was not a sustainable system. And definitely at that point of time, science has reinvented itself by finding out how we can give that same ammonium into the soil. That's how urea is. Urea is actually two molecules of ammonium with one carbon molecule. So that is what has happened. So that is how we started putting all these chemicals into the soil. But in what happened as in when our requirement for food increased, so we started applying more of these chemicals. So when we started applying more of these chemicals, there was denaturation of the basic bacteria in the soil. So there is a situation currently where more and more application of fertilizers could not provide the desired effect. So now there is a nutrient utilization problem. So how much ever you apply, your chemicals cannot be absorbed by the plants, because basically what life has to be there in the soil in order to replenish these macronutrients is not currently available, because urea is a denaturant. Basically, it can denature any biomolecule. It can denature biomolecule in the sense it can also denature bacteria. It can kill bacteria. So whatever life is there in the soil is going to go down. Now, what is the solution for it? So at FIPSOL, and these are the problems of chemical fertilizers, using more of chemical fertilizers. I wouldn't say problem with chemical fertilizers. So in that case, this is known. Everybody knows it creates water pollution, soil pollution, this and that, bleaching, all this happens. Now, what is that we want to offer a solution, or what could be a solution to this? So using a good quality biofertilizer. So if you say biofertilizer, this is age-old science. These are soil microbes that were naturally present in the soil. And today we are trying to replenish the soil with these good quality biofertilizers. So these are basically soil microbes. Biofertilizer.
Can you put the presentation on slideshow, please? I think it's not on slideshow.
Okay.
And slides are not moving. I think that's.
I'm sorry, sir. Thanks for letting me know that. Are you able to see now?
Yeah, see, but it's not on slideshow. Can you put it on slideshow?
It's in slideshow. Just a minute.
Maybe you can unshare and share again if possible.
Okay. Just a minute. One minute. It's still not in slideshow.
It is, but we are seeing two slides. Maybe you can, I don't know if there's a way to cut out the smaller pan. Yeah, slides are moving, but we still see two slides. It's okay if it's not.
Just a minute. You're able to see the smaller one also parallelly, right? That's what I think I understand.
Yeah, there are two parallel, one.
Screen is there. Sorry.
Mr. Kulkarni is advising that you should go to display settings when you've done your slideshow. I think there should be an option for you to allow us to only see one slide.
Okay. I think it's going to take time. So if I can just run it. Can you see the slides now? I think I can just run it.
Yeah, it's moving at least. Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Sorry for this, but kindly excuse me. So if you see, a good quality biofertilizer is actually able to restore the soil quality. We can reduce the amount of chemicals, and also it can bring down the carbon dioxide emission because it needs less amount of chemical fertilizer. Also, the biofertilizer manufacturing doesn't need so much of carbon dioxide emission. So these are the advantages of a good biofertilizer. And if you see by government regulations, a good biofertilizer should have a certain amount of cell count, and it should be stable. So this is what the FCO recommends, the Fertilizer Control Order recommends. Now, why isn't there any good biofertilizer available, or what is the problem? So you see a lot of biofertilizers in the market. So the problem is nothing to do about the manufacturing, nothing to do about the biofertilizer quality. It is about the carrier quality. So like if you had noticed in Renuka's presentation, she very clearly mentioned bacteria is very difficult to stabilize. So that is where the problem comes in. But if you see a bacteria, it is a battery, it's a factory by itself. It can take care of all the needs of the plant if supplied in a viable form or in a live form to the soil. So that is what exactly FIPSOL is trying to address. So we are trying to develop carrier formulations. It means the media in which these bacteria are carried and delivered to the farm. So that is the problem that we are trying to address. And here, if you see the blue lines are FIPSOL carrier technology. And the red lines are the commercially available technologies. So the blue lines are able to give a very high count, means around 10 to the power of 12 cells per gram of the carrier. And also, if you see, their life is stable for almost 1 year without declining in the media that we have put them in. So this is exactly what FIPSOL is doing. So now let me just go into the technology part of it. So we have two types of technology that we have developed at FIPSOL today. So one is a nanofiber technology. So this is the world's first ever membrane-based water-soluble technology. So this technology, by doing this, what has happened is we have developed a 5 gram of a membrane which just dissolves in water, and it provides all the bacteria that is needed for 1 acre of land. So this could be a nitrogen fixer, it could be a phosphate solubilizer, or a potassium mobilizer. So all 3 types of bacteria can go into this membrane. We have commercially developed this, got a pilot scale up of the technology, and we have also got the FCO clearance for this technology. But today we are not marketing this in a bigger way. We are looking for some partners, being the first time viewers. I mean, it's very early type of technology. That's what we have understood. And we are looking for partners in this particular technology. But the other technology that we have come up with is a gel-based formulation. This is again an entrapment and encapsulation technology. I should say this is something like a emulsion, a micelle holding the bacteria within the micelle in a simpler term. So this also stabilizes the bacteria. So here what happens is, instead of 5 grams, we have 100 ml of material, which holds around 3 into 10 to the power of 12 bacteria, sufficient to fertilize an acre of land. Again, the stability is ensured for 1 year. So these are the 2 types of technology that we have developed. Just to have a glimpse on the nanofiber technology, just let me know if there is any problem.
There's no sound, but we can see.
So the technology, actually, this membrane that you see is able to entrap the bacteria that is needed. I wouldn't say this is for an acre. For an acre is a 1 square meter membrane. So this is a small 100 square feet membrane for 100 square feet. So this is how it looks in a cell. So these are nanofibers. The bacteria actually gets encapsulated in these nanofibers. And when you put the fibers in water, it just dissolves, and then using any of the technology, you can apply it. So this is the competition product in the market. So what we're trying to say is the competitive product is not as compatible as, the technology is not as compatible as a nanofiber technology. So this is the original product. If you see, this is how it looks. So we actually scaled up the technology. Today, we are the largest water-soluble nanofiber producers in the country. So we have developed all this in-house, but unfortunately still not in the market in a big way. So that is where the technology is lying. So yeah, so and it is also eco-friendly. And if you see, this is how 1,000 times lesser bulkier. So just 5 gram tissue paper like membrane in your pocket is what the technology confers. So and now this is how the product looks commercially. So this is a joint patent between FIBSOL and IIT Madras, and FIBSOL has an exclusive license on this technology. And if you see the next range of product, the gel products that I was talking about, so this we have launched and we are commercializing this currently, and we have marketing partners for this product. We have also come up with crop specific formulation. So in this case also it is water soluble, and again this is the first type such a carrier is used in agri market. So it looks like a shampoo. So when you open it, it just looks like a shampoo, and the bacteria is stabilized in this. And the advantages are you can reduce the chemicals by 50%. The farmer gets an increase in yield. So we've done a cost benefit analysis both with the universities as well as on ground farmers. Also, the yield is 90% of the time the farmer gets a 20 to 30% yield increase by using this along with this POP. So he will not change any of this package of practice. So that is the advantage he has. And currently our marketing strategy is mainly through the farmer producing organizations. We are very district specific and crop specific because again, being a startup, we have our own challenges. So the model is mainly through the farmer producing organization, farmer producing aggregators, and few marketing partnerships and some dealers. So we are not again going through the dealer market because what we have understood is there's a lot of education in basic science and basic understanding that has to be imparted, which I feel only the company can do it directly, especially with these partners, because FPOs is easy because it's a collective of farmers. So that is the reason we are currently focusing only on these segments and these crops and these districts very clearly. So we have done close to around, if you say around 25 to 30 trials, both with the universities, with corporates, as well as independently. So, and as you see from this table, in most cases, there has been a very good yield increase. And especially in groundnuts, there was a very phenomenal yield increase that we found. So this is in a gist of what all we have done, trial part of it. And these are some of the recent, in the last 6 months, whatever has happened. Last mango season, this was very interesting because one farmer who got 7 ton last the 1920, in 2021 he got almost 100 tons in 1,000 trees. So that was a very interesting. Maybe there could have been other factors, but remarkably this time he has used Pipsol without any chemical, so it was standing out. So that is one thing, and eventually that person has landed up marketing our products. That's the most interesting story. And now this is through Reddy's Foundation. We are trying to market our products through Reddy's Foundation, and they are also they've conducted trials in the past 2 years. They are interested and they are currently taking up the products, promoting it. And so this is again in Madanapalli region of Andhra Pradesh. So this is a farmer who has got a good yield, and the attractive factor for him was increase in color. So like bacteria, apart from fixing nitrogen, mobilizing potassium, solubilizing phosphorus, it also produces a lot of other molecules, like it produces growth hormones, it produces stress hormones, stress molecules, stressors. So most of these are produced. So it is a battery of thing it is able to provide to the plant only if it is alive till it reaches the farm and able to sustain. So that is what exactly Pipsol is trying to do. So it's got a good color and texture as well. And this is again in veggies, and this is through NG Ranga Agriculture. This is through KVK, Bangalore, and this is through NG Ranga Agricultural University in maize. And of course, again, a lot of money has to be spent on the trials also, but still we have to do it because being a new technology, trials are the only way that we can prove ourselves. So we still keep doing that. And so this is on acid lime. Again, this is a result trial. So this is in sweet orange, and we have this in paddy. So we did a huge demo of around 30 field in a single district, so that people get to know the effects on paddy, because paddy is a difficult market, but the product has been doing really good in paddy as well. So these are a few of our awards and recognitions for the technology that we have received. And of course, this is a team behind it. So all three of us are from IIT Madras, and but business-wise, we are mentored by IIT Madras Innovation Cell, and this is how we are placed. Thank you so much for the time. It's open for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kavita. We have many questions that have been posted by the audience. I'll quickly go through them. What is the shelf life in the nanofiber product?
So 2 years is the shelf life of the nanofibers. So we have done accelerated experiments, as well as we have stored them in the shelf continuously for 2 years and tested. In case of gels, it is 1 year.
And these are all FCO approved?
Yeah, both are FCO approved.
Okay. What is your production capacity right now, should anyone wish to partner?
So in-house for gels, I can produce around 2,000 units, 2,000 acres worth of material per month. And for fibers, I can produce around 1,000 acres worth of material per month.
Great. We have one more question. Have you done any trials on sugarcane crop?
Not yet, but currently there is a farmer who has purchased this in Udumalai for sugarcane. And so the organism is going to be Acetobacter vinylandi, and the dose recommendations we are currently taking from TNAU. So we are also waiting. But having said that, again, it's a soil treatment, and what we are doing is only delivering the organism. So unless until the organism is alive in the soil and everything is good, I think it should be good. And we are keeping our fingers crossed for the results.
Right. Can we use this product in trees where there is no symbiotic association with microbes?
Definitely you can use, because like if you see nitrogen fixers, there are 2 types of nitrogen fixers. One is symbiotic nitrogen fixer, and the other is a free living nitrogen fixer. The only problem with free living nitrogen fixers is the amount of organisms, the number of organisms will be lesser when compared to symbiotic organisms. That is why our technology also takes care of the count of the organisms that we are getting. Always we concentrate on the count as well. So if you see Azospirillum and Acetobacter mainly, so these are free living nitrogen fixers. And the most interesting and very beautiful thing about these organisms is the signals that they produce. So many times farmers ask me this question, when I put chemicals during rains, it will leach out. What about bacteria? So whenever you put a free living organism into the soil, the tree or the plant always signals to the organism. There's always a signal. So there are molecules like isoflavones, they are quorum sensing molecules, a battery of AHL, acyl homocyl and lactones that keep signaling your bacteria. And the bacteria in turn responds to them, mostly not factors, and they come back to the rhizosphere region. So they always exist somewhere near the rhizosphere of the plant, even if they are free living. So they both signal to each other and they will do the function. So you don't have to worry whether your plant or your tree is actually symbiotic, because there is more free living nitrogen fixers compared to symbiotic nitrogen fixers. Like if you see symbiotic, only rhizobium is the organism. But if you see free living, you have Pseudomonas as a nitrogen fixer. It's a free living nitrogen fixer. So yeah, that's how it is. If you ask me, I'll keep on telling, but yeah, you can use it. I'm sorry.
We have one last question. What is the dosage and the shelf life of the nanofiber products, and what would be the additional cost to the farmer along with their regular package of practice?
Yeah. So if you see the nanofibers, since there's a lot of interest in the nanofibers, it would cost him additionally around 2,500 rupees for a single dose if he's going to use nanofibers. And the dose recommendation is 5 gram per bacteria. So we are recommending 3 bacteria, so 15 gram. 15 gram per dose, and it is going to cost him 2,500 one application. Okay, this is the thing. And normally we recommend 50% reduction, but I don't know how many farmers, they really don't heed to it. So if you have to go by their POP, then you have to leave them and tell them you apply another extra 2,500. The only place where you can guarantee them is you get an increase in your yield by 20%. But what they are also observing in the field is the next 10-15 days when they apply this biofertilizers, I would rather call them good biofertilizers, the farmer sees a very good difference. So you'll see a greening like in chemicals itself, but it'll take 15 days. You'll see a greening, you'll see an increase in plant height. In some cases, they listen to us, they also do a root length. So when they find an increase in root length, they are happy. So the next dose of chemicals, they'll try to reduce themselves. So that is where we are banking on them. So we can still ask them to reduce their chemical. Say after 15-20 days, you can tell them don't apply the next dose if you are able to follow up with them.
So Dr. Kavita, you mentioned that you've done this for biofertilizers. Is this the 2 carrier materials that you developed, are they also compatible with the biopesticides?
Yes, they are compatible with biopesticides. So currently with the gel technology, fibers we haven't explored, but with the gel technology, we can go in for fungal spores. So we have started Trichoderma viride, Beauveria bassiana, Metarhizium, Verticillium, and in bacterial biopesticides, Pseudomonas fluorescens, BT. So we have started doing that gel technology. Fiber technology, because as you understand, there's a nanofiber made. So I need to always check the compatibility of the organism size and the fiber size. So that is where, when there is an interest collaboration, that's where we are looking for collaborations. We can do all that. But in gels, we are able to do this entrapment with all organisms.
And do you have registrations with CIB for the same, considering CIB is a tough?
Yeah, actually today exactly the same thing has happened. Now what we are doing is, that's the reason you see that we never put it anywhere. The biochemical, I can be frank, there's no problem about it. Pseudomonas is actually a plant growth regulator. So it's an immune booster. So we are putting that under that category and we are still giving. But what happens is there is always a farmer who comes back and asks, we need this. So we, at some point of time, we also feel bad. So we make them in shake flask. As and when required, we are giving out to them. And today I just got through one of my colleagues, I've got all the regulatory things. Again, this is always an issue, but I started looking at it. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Kavita. We have one last question from Mr. Srivastav. Are these products available in liquid form?
The product that we are giving is in gel form. So this is water soluble gel. Gel, sir. Actually, we are trying to reduce the carrier material. So if you say in liquid, what I'm giving you in 100 ml, you may get it in 3 liters. So that is what I'm trying to reduce. I'm condensing, I'm resuspending and encapsulating them in a gel form. So the idea is to reduce your carrier, at the same time protect your bacteria from all the stressful condition that it will encounter till it reaches your farm. Once I put them in liquid, especially dilute liquid, they will definitely die. So it's nothing to do about with the manufacturer. That is nature. So when you put, see it is like osmosis, right? You put yourself in a hypertonic liquid. What happens slowly? The cell starts bursting, right? It's some sort of lysis that happens. So that is where we are trying to avoid most of the liquid carriers and trying to put them in a gel type carrier. So that is a technical innovation itself. But one thing is, this is water soluble. So the moment you can check all our YouTube, FIPSOL's YouTube channel, you will see the entire application protocol. So you will see that within seconds, this goes into water. It will just become like water. So you can reformulate it in 1 liter of water just before application. And in whatever portal you want to apply, seed coating, drip irrigation, broadcasting by mixing with farmyard manure or soil or compost, anything you want to do, you can.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kavita. This was very interesting. Carrier materials for biofertilizers is something that is new for me as well. So thank you for sharing the story of FIPSOL. We can now move to MIVI-Pro. We have Mr. GV Sudarshan with us, Managing Director at MIVI-Pro. He has extensively studied the problems in animal feed and agriculture sector. And through MIVI-Pro is now providing innovative and environmental friendly solutions for livestock and agriculture farmers. Mr. Sudarshan, the floor is yours. We can't hear you, Mr. Sudarshan, your mic's on mute.
Yeah. So it's audible now?
Yes.
So good evening to everyone. And so MIVI-Pro Products Private Limited, a startup, was incorporated in 2019 very recently. And myself and my father, Mr. Vishwanathan, with 4 decades of industry experience, are both promoter directors. And we have come up with a revolutionary product that will help the Indian farmers live peacefully without worrying about the crop damage from wild animals, wild birds, and rodents. So this is, and everyone knows that it's crores and crores of worth of crops are being lost because of the intrusion of animals with the wild pigs, elephants, monkeys, and blue bull and whatnot. And we have come up with a very innovative solution. I can say the world's first sustainable solution to address this sensitive issue of man-animal conflict. This is an odor and taste-based biorepellent, which is effective on all kind of crops, starting from the flowers, fruits, vegetables, spices, anything. And this liquid, a same single bioliquid, which is very effective on controlling the range of herbivorous wild animals, wild birds, and rodents, starting from the elephants, wild pigs, deer, rats, rabbit, porcupine, monkey, squirrel, peacock, parrot, blue bull. So all these things have been tested and documented in different geographies on different crops by us. And it is not only a repellent. The innovation is it acts as a wonderful growth promoter when it has been applied on the crop as a foliar spray. So it simultaneously acts as a yield improvement, and very considerable yield increase have been documented by the State Agriculture University, TNAU in Coimbatore, after their 1 year of field study. And we also have a very innovative solution to the farmers keeping their difficulties to protect the crop from this animal intrusion and pest infestation in the rainy season and deep winter. Because no solution is till today is available across the world, which can stay in the crop when applied even during the rainy seasons. But we have come up with an automatic timer control battery operated sprinkler unit, which will very comfortably protect the crops of 2 to 3 acres. One unit costing 3,000 rupees, 3,300 rupees approximately. And it's like a sprayer, a battery sprayer has to be purchased by the farmer, which is generally available with them. And all the other accessories costing 1,000, 1,200 rupees. And along with the timer, which we have developed for this battery sprayers, which cost 700 rupees. Together, 3,300 rupees it costs. The controlled release of droplets from the sprinkler units in the set time into the atmosphere and spreads that odor, the odor into the atmosphere and protecting the crop from the intrusion of the animals and infestation of pests. We have also documented this in the tribal farmers and millet crops for control of wild pigs. So one is the application of foliar spray, And second thing is using the automatic timer control battery units to protect during the rainy season. So the product is very, very unique, having multiple benefits. That's why the name Herbolive Plus. The plus denotes the multiple benefits. It's not only a repellent, it also increases the yield very considerably. And TNAU has documented a growth increase of 20-23% in the cash crops after 1 year of study. And it controls all kind of pests, the minor pest and major pest, and it controls the fungal diseases. It improves the soil biologicals, not the soil nutrients, the soil biologicals, and a considerable growth in soil biologicals has also been documented by TNAU. And water retention improvement in the soil has been observed. And the taste, flavor, and shelf life improvement of the end produce is considerably increasing. So all the 7 benefits in the single product makes it very unique and a one-stop solution for the farmers for their whole crop cycle. They need not go in search of a product for X pest and Y pest and Z pest, or they need not go in search of a product for a problem of different kind of viruses or to promote the growth if any issues are there in the soil. So everything is taken care. An additional incremental yield increase is being observed along with the control of the animal intrusion and wild birds and rodents intrusion. So the product is very clearly positioned to address the man-animal conflict problems. When they use it as per the recommended the schedule of spraying for the entire crop cycle, the other benefits are also being observed. So they need not apply any pesticides or fungicides or viricides or even the top fertilizer urea, not the basal fertilizer. The top fertilizer urea can also be avoided. And we have documented this in 1,200 acres of paddy fields, which we have implemented in our business model, where ICAR KVK of Erode district has been our implementing partner. And these are the various milestones where this has been tested and certified by the TNAU Coimbatore, and the successful trials in 12 states across India has been conducted in different crops. And this has been tested and documented by ICAR KVK institutes in Tamil Nadu and Andhra, different KVKs for control of wild pigs, deers, rodents, peacock. And we have also conducted a completion of successful trials in Kerala State Forest Department for control of wild pigs, elephants, peacocks in banana, tapioca, and vegetable fields. And this is an organic certified product. And we have also obtained positive toxicology reports stating that this doesn't harm the animals in any manner. This doesn't kill the animals. This doesn't harm the humans while consuming the end produce which is grown applying this Herbolive Plus. They have done the toxicology studies in rats under the ethical committee approval. Trademark is registered, and we've been recognized by Indian Council of Agriculture Research in the national level as a farmer innovator in 2019. And we've been recently, they are part of the final cohort of Social Alpha Tata Trust program, where they are really excited about seeing this technology is reaching across India for the vulnerable farmers who are facing this man-animal conflict problems. So this is the competitive edge which we have is the product, as I said, the multiple benefits. And in the service, we are giving 3 options to the farmers. One is they can buy and through the B2B channel, and they can spray it manually using whatever the sprayers they are having it. And the second thing is we spray it by ourselves using drones. So we are doing this in our cluster model. It's a B2C model, and soil application can be done, and the automatic timer control application. 3 kind of applications are possible for the farmers. And the channel with the competitive edge, what we are having with this kind of a solution being very innovative. And it is since it's addressing the pressing need of the farmers now, where they do not have any solutions, sustainable alternate solutions. So through NGO channels, we are reaching out, and through KVK, who are our implementing partners, and the FPOs are also, we are in touch with few FPOs and discussing at this point of time. And the technology, as I said, the single liquid for both the herbivorous animals, birds and rodents, repelling all kind of things, and can be used for all crops, is a big competitive advantage which we have, along with the automatic timer control unit. And of course, market is very easy to access, and it is not difficult to identify the vulnerable areas now. So our business model and the go-to-market, what we are trying to do is B2C model. This is a cluster model, which we are focusing mostly in our business plan. So it's a 200 acres of field. The particular target crops would be aggregated by the implementing partners in field in 20-kilometer radius, which is one cluster according to us. So this will be basically possible for paddy, which faces rodents problem, which is very common, and the other wild animal, wild birds problem is scattered across the country in different places. And groundnut, which is very commonly affected by wild pigs and peacocks. And then the wheat, like the nilgai and wild boars are affecting it, and banana and sugarcane. The elephants, wild pigs, rodents, rabbits problem in the first month of sugarcane is a huge problem. So, these are the major crops which we are focusing. Of course, in saffron in Kashmir, which has a porcupine problem, we have also tested this with the Kashmir Saffron Agriculture Research Institute, and we found to get a very positive outcome in a very short-term study. But unfortunately, they want us to do a whole year study, and the environment in Kashmir is not very conducive to go and conduct the trials. So we are looking for partners who can do it for us. So these are the crops. And not only these crops, any crops which are possible for us or our implementing partners to form a clusters can be taken up. Like in UP now, Social Alpha, the Tata Trust team has taken up for vegetables for mainly, because it is cultivated in extensive area. So clusters can be easily formed. But to the other crops, to the other farmers where clusters cannot be formed, it will be reached through the B2B channel, where they have to buy and apply it manually. And the use cases, of course, I think I put too much of data, so it will not be clear. So it's basically very recent. In the August 2021 month, the paddy season ended in Erode district of Tamil Nadu, where KVK was our implementing partner. And Rotary Club has taken up this project in Gobi as a national level agriculture project, trying to reach to all the farmers. So we see the three use cases comparing with the non-project farmers. So project and non-project farmers, basically the cost of plant protection is very much reduced. Yield is increased. The fodder percentage is also increased in paddy. These are all taken for paddy fields. And the crop protection from animals has also considerably, it's almost 90% has been reduced. So overall, if you see the cost benefit ratio, the first sheet says that 247% of cost benefit. The farmer has spent 1,600 rupees and his the additional income is 3,950 rupees. And the second sheet, the farmer has used 2,400 rupees per acre, whereas he has got 199% cost benefit ratio. And the third sheet, the farmer called Sita is a traditional, this is an organic farmer who doesn't change the practice for any reason. But by seeing the result from the other farmers who adopted this, she also came forward and joined in the season. And she saw a huge increase in the yield compared with the previous season, and with the neighboring farmers of this season also. She has seen a 283% improvement in the cost benefit ratio. So this gives a lot of convenience, you see, in the cluster model when we take it to the farmers. I would like to mention a few points here, because in agriculture today, and India comprising of 87% of the smallholder farmers, they go in search of these spraymen. Most of the times, yes, they spray by themselves, but they do not calculate the labor cost involved. Since they feel that they are doing by themselves, they do not calculate the labor cost. But that's not the right way of looking at the economics. When you calculate that, or when you want to go in search of the spraymen who are not at all available these days in time, and the right time of spraying schedule is very important in agriculture. If you delay that, a lot of negative impact will also happen in the economically. And here it's a reverse. We are going in search of farmers. After once the cluster model is formed and the calendar of spraying schedules is formed, we call the farmers and we say that tomorrow is your schedule. We are coming there at this time. What is convenient time? And our team goes there and sprays it in just 10 minutes. 1 acre is completed, where it takes 45 to 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour for a farmer to do a manual spray. Even if they're hiring, they have to stand there and provide the water and all those things. It's a very tough task, and even application won't be there. So with our drone technology intervention, I mean, the even application is happening. The cost efficiency is improved and the efficacy is also improved. And it's a very big convenience to the farmers. The health of the sprayman, which is very affected by using chemical sprays, or the even the tiredness happening, even if it's a bio product, is everything been addressed. There is no labor involved in the spraying here. So these are the few documents, a video document where the Social Alpha has provided us in UP. This is for monkeys. It's an NGO, TRIF NGO has documented this. I don't know whether the audio will be clear, or the headphones are used, it will be clear.
We can't hear the audio.
Okay. I will share this entire links. We have a YouTube channel where all the farmers' documents of different crops and different animals have been documented and uploaded. So it's basically Herbolive space plus PLUS. Herbolive plus is our YouTube channel. So these farmers are saying that they have very clearly bifurcated the lands into two, untreated and treated. So the treated plot of this vegetable fields and paddy fields they have taken, there is no intrusion of the monkeys and the domestic cows. Whereas the untreated plot, 30% has been damaged, and the health of the crop in treated plot is so good, the flowering of the vegetables is so good. So it's a, I mean, apart from the addressing the sleepless night, the farmer is also ensured that the crop is very healthy, staying healthy. And we are objective of this product innovation development, everything is to see the farmers are enabled to give us a residue-free produce at the end of the day, and provide and hand over a healthy soil to the next generation, where the reverse migration should happen with this technology interventions, and without depending on the labor a lot in the crop cycle for all these applications of medicines or all these things. So the next generation should come forward, and reverse migration should happen. They should stay back in agriculture is objective. And the basic thing is, while applying this, the beauty of the nature is it improves the beneficial insects. It improves the beneficial insects in the ecosystem. So the possible synergies, what we're looking with the agri corporates and food corporates, are like the contract farming food corporate companies. We can act as a cultivation partner for them, taking care of their entire crop cycle and the needs. And again, it depends upon if the vulnerability of the animal is there, and we are ready to be at that place. And we can assure the quality and shelf life of the end produce, which is very much an important criteria for the contract farming companies. And the buyback of residue-free produce by food corporates. So we are also looking for some market linkages to happen. We also tried in our project with our, since the Rotary Club was involved, we tried to do value addition of a farmer's paddy, residue-free paddy, got it certified by TNAU, and converted that into rice using a traditional huller mill, packed into small 5 kg packs and branded under the farmer's name. So the farmer name is the brand, his number and address is given. So, and it has been a market linkage was done. And we were seeing a very good, response when the that idli rice variety was selling at 30 rupees in the wholesale price. We were able to reach out to the consumers directly for 45 rupees per kg. Whoever were using was continuously buying it whenever they want. They were referring it to their known people also. But this is all in a small scale. But when we are talking about a large scale, we would definitely need support of the corporate companies who would encourage for the market linkage by buying back the residue-free produce. And we are also into Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and in Andhra, in Banavasi and Kaligiri, KVKs are all implementing partners, and they are reaching out to the farmers. And for cotton fields and the vegetable fields in Banavasi, they have reached out extensively. And also in Bellary district, we have an implementing partner who was testing it in paddy, and they're extremely happy. And in a very short period, we are able to convert the customers from the linear model to a cluster model because of the cost, cost economics. 20% to 25% the cost is reduced in the cluster model compared to the linear model. And of course, we can also work with the sugar mills if they're interested. We have given this to Balrampur and Bagbat sugar mill long back, and they were very happy. But unfortunately, in those 4 years back, they wanted us to set our own supply chain, which we were not able to do at that time. So we can ensure the productivity from the field, which is a big challenge due to crop loss by wild animals. We understand from a big corporate here in Banariam Sugars in Tamil Nadu. So they say, they show the board of their target and why the gap is huge between the target and the actual outcome. The crop loss because of the animal intrusion is so huge in their operating areas, cultivating areas, where they are not able to bring the achieve the productivity in the factories. So a lot of issues are there in that side. So we would be very happy to address that and working with them. And of course, the resource institutes of FPOs and KVKs and NGO will also be our implementing partners, where the NGO channels are utilized. And many NGOs have their own agri entrepreneurs formed who will act as an interface between the companies like us and the farmers. So this is the entire life cycle impact of my innovative Herbolive Plus. I'm very happy to say that the farmer, the land ecosystem is improved. The improvement in the water quality, soil, air, pest control, and beneficial insects improvement, and the man-animal conflict solution without killing the animals or harming the animals. That's most important. And in the farming ecosystem, the entire the other inputs, everything is getting benefited when this is improving the growth and taking care of the residue-free, enabling them to produce a residue-free produce. And of course, in the market ecosystem, the buyers are ensured about the quality, and in the social impact, where the consumers' health is also getting improved. So this is our life cycle impact in short. And of course, the ecosystem stakeholders, I would say the CSR funds for awareness creation, because when I call it as an innovation, I strongly feel and I'm confident that sales or promotion is not, marketing is not required. The marketing is the model which we have already developed and tested it. Sales is not required. The only thing is we need to create awareness to the users, target customers, that this kind of a solution is available. And this is how it will be available to you to reach. So that awareness creation is required for the farmers, and that costs us a lot. And one thing is we need to do that. And we generally, with the implementing partners, we actually onboard the implementing partners in the vulnerable areas. And with their help, we arrange a farmers meeting and conduct subsidized field demos. So the CSR funds would also be required for that, to conduct subsidized field demos where the farmers will be able to see the entire range of impact, what we are claiming in innovation. And then they form the clusters. So the equity investment, of course, to scale up and form the sales team. And ICAR KVK, of course, they have taken up, though they have recognized, and many KVKs have in Tamil Nadu and Andhra started to take it up with their OFTs model. I feel that if the KVKs, one beautiful thing which I observed in the KVKs is, yes, it is not that all the KVKs are very active like everyone. I mean, of course, there are a lot of other challenges, but still, KVKs are the only institute which I see that they're working in the very field, ground level, grassroots level, and understanding the problems of the farmers and trying to reach the good technologies to address those requirements. So in this case, the grievances of the farmers are pouring into three areas. One is to the agriculture department, state agriculture departments, and to the forest departments, to the collector offices, district administration, and to the KVKs or the district KVKs. So everybody are wanting and waiting for a sustainable solution. So all these institutions can definitely help us out with a proper channel being devised. Because now, if you take about the government departments taking it and reaching out to the farmers through their line departments, agriculture line departments, and through the other available schemes, we are Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, since they have incubated us and tested and certified this, have seen this impact for long years. They have now recommended under the Scientific Workers Conference to the State Agriculture University. But it again takes time. Though we have got a certification in place and all kind of certifications, organic certification, toxicology reports, KVK, District Farm Research Station reports, and the State Forest Department reports, they again take it up for some other testings in different conditions, and then they want to take it forward to the customers. But when we try to reach with each government, state by state, it takes a lot of time. But when they do not have a solution, they are unable to answer to the grievances of the farmers pouring in. So I feel that policies has to be designed in such a way that this kind of solutions, if taken up in one state or properly documented in one state, should be taken up by the other departments in the other state. But we are not depending on only the government channels, definitely. So our main channels are the details which we have explained in our competitive edge. So thank you. Please come join us as we are creating a new revolutionary chapter in Indian agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Sudarshan. We have many questions for you. Your product has definitely intrigued many people in the audience today. One question that has been asked by many people here is that how is this product going to impact the food chain, especially the beneficial insects or birds?
This doesn't have any negative effect, madam. The one simple reason is when we are applying this on the crop, and the non-beneficial insects, the harmful insects are the ones which come in contact with the crop's leaf surface. But whereas the beneficial insects, generally it eats it comes there to eat the non-beneficial insects. So we'll have to improve that. And we have also seen this in our R&D farm where the live honeybee combs are available even when we are growing it, the fruits and vegetables using Herbolic Plus. And this has also been documented in the field conditions also. So it doesn't harm the beneficial insects in any manner. We have tested this in the mulberry leaves itself. and feeding the mulberry leaf for the silkworm, where the cocoon weight, a single cocoon weight and the strength, everything was wonderful.
Okay, great. There's a question about the application of the product. How many times one should apply in a crop cycle, say in an annual crop?
For a annual crop?
Yes.
It depends upon the problem. See, for sugarcane, the problem starts from the 5th month. Generally, if the animal has to enter when the foliage is dense, so it enters inside and stays inside and starts breeding. I can say it makes it as its home and starts breeding the wild boars, such thing. So from the 5th month, 6th month onwards, till the harvest, the wild boars will be inside damaging the crop slowly. So they have to start the application from the 6th month until 11th month. For banana, it's different. From when the problem starts till the problem ends, they allow to utilize. But our recommendation for banana is, taking into consideration for all the other benefits and seeing the damages happening in different stages, we are recommending it on 15 days once for 8 to 9 months. It's almost like 15 to 18 sprays in the whole crop cycle. But they can avoid the entire range of pesticides, fungicides, whatever it is, the growth promoters, they can avoid everything.
All right. Have you tried this? Does this product work on nematodes?
Yeah, definitely. This also works for the controlling the nematodes problem. In turmeric also we have tried for the root problems and for root fusarium kind of problems also issues. We have tested this and it is very effective.
What about white grub and other soil-borne insects? Does it work on that as well?
We have tested it in Anakirti, Dayananda Saraswati Gurukulam Ashram itself. It's a vegetable garden where TNAU has taken this as an on-farm trial there. And for 1 year, we have tested it, and that was also been very effectively controlled because the soil application also, because this how it works when it is getting into the system of the plants, it acts as systemic, and it improves the root exuberates also into the soil. And during the soil application, another kind of application is soil application, where it controls the soil-borne problems and root-borne problems very effectively.
Great. There are 2 technical questions about the sprayer. That what is the area covered by the sprayer that you've developed, and what is the half-life of the repellent?
No, we have not developed any spray. Okay, the automatic timer sprayers, you're talking about that?
Yes, the timer-based sprayer.
Yeah, that unit can take care of 2 to 3 acres comfortably, one single unit, because it's a 300 feet drip lateral is connected, removing the spray gun, which is connected to the battery spacer. We remove that, put a connector and just connect the drip laterals, the normal 16 mm drip laterals for 200 feet and with a T-joint, 50 feet on left and 50 feet on the right side. And we punch the normal sprinklers in every 10 to 20 feet distance. And the timer is set as such, every 1 hour, all the sprinklers are functioning for 1 minute. So overall, a 16-liter capacity of battery sprayer will be completed in 8 hours of time. Say in the night times or in the daytime, 8 hours is more than sufficient for the farmers to keep. And every 1 hour once, 1 minute of this controlled release of droplets into the atmosphere is very effective in controlling the problems.
Okay. There are 2 more questions about the effect of this product on nilgai and locusts.
We have done it on nilgai, and in Bihar, Chapra district itself, we have done it on nilgai. And then a small NGO has documented it, and it is very effective. And in UP, the Social Alpha program team also, they have also taken it for nilgai, and they're also finding it very good results. And for locust, desert locust, yes. This product has been taken up by the ICAR Atharis, who encouraged me a lot in Rajasthan. Hanumangarh district KVK has taken and applied it on cotton, and it's a very short-term study. They have observed it as an anti-feedant. The cotton crop which was applied with Herbolive, there were no damage by the desert locust. Though it was landing, it used to faint. The farmer, the video they have documented and shown the farmer taking the locust in hands and says that it is losing its capacity. Incapacity is happening. It is not able to eat by itself. It doesn't kill. It is not able to eat anything. But whereas the other nearby plot, which was not used with Herbolive, was fully damaged. We were trying to reach out to help the farmers in that time, but because of COVID, we were not able to quickly reach out, and by the time it disappeared.
That's very promising that you've had results on locusts as well. One last request that we have here is from Mr. Srivastava. He would like to conduct trials on the sugarcane crop in central UP. So if you could just drop your contact details in the chat, people can reach out to you after this.
Yeah, sure. I'll be really happy.
We also have a very promising invite from Mr. Ashok Meda, who represents the Krishi Kalpa Foundation, Bangalore. And he would like to connect all the startups today with FPOs networks across Karnataka. And he has left his contact details and email address, and we can share these with the startups after this presentation.
Oh, sure. That would be a great opportunity for us. And
all the startups, yes, great. So thank you, Sudarshan ji. With this, we come to the end of our showcase. Abhijit, are we waiting for String Bio?
No, they would not be able to make it.
Great. So thank you, everyone. If we could just unshare the screen. Thank you. So I will now close this session before I invite Hemendra sir for his concluding remarks. Thank you everyone for the presentations. They were really enlightening and very promising for the future of bio and for the future of bio agri startups in India. We've spoken about consumer demand. We've spoken about farmers also demanding for safer, sustainable agri solutions. The government ecosystem becoming more friendly for startups and for bio solutions. So it looks like the coming years, this coming decade is going to be important for this product portfolio. We've also seen a lot of investment in the agri-tech industry in the last couple of years. Most of it has, however, been in value chain solutions or warehousing solutions, end-to-end farmer models. Comparatively, bio startups have seen a lot less investment. So I invite everyone present today to take this as an opportunity to treat the bio cousins also as great investment opportunities. We also have many corporate leaders who have joined us today, and we invite them to partner and to collaborate with these startups and help them take their solutions to the farmers. With this, I would like to invite Hemendra sir for the concluding remarks.
Thanks, Amrita. Thanks very much. And thank you to all the 5 presenters today. They did a great job. And of course, the solutions are very unique. So thanks to Renuka, Prabhav, Kavita, Sudarshan. I think you definitely have a very good product. And we are happy to partner with you to take your solutions to the market. I think that's very important. And I also want to thank Amrita and the entire Dayal Group team for partnering with us. It's a very, very important topic for ThinkAg, and I'm sure it is for you. So we'll make sure that we continue this dialogue. And thanks to audience especially. It was a relatively smaller group today, but I was so happy to see the questions and the quality of questions. So thanks to all the audience who were posing questions and comments throughout the session. So that was very heartening for us. And as Amrita requested to all of you, let's give this startup the chance to partner with you in whatever capacity. If you have FPO connections, if you have corporate connections, if you have the ability to test trial, please reach out to them. And we are happy to build this partnerships. That's so important to establish the credibility of these products. So that's extremely important. And as I mentioned at the beginning, that this is the first episode. We want to build upon this dialogue. So just stay tuned. We'll let you know about the next episode of Ag Biotech. Hopefully, we'll invite a few corporate entities also who are developing their products or who are trying these products developed by startups to get their perspective. So with that, have a great evening, and thanks very much for joining us for this episode of Ag Biotech. Thank you.